All right, thanks, Adam. Thanks, Stephanie. I mean, Jim. Jim Clausen and Rocco are here, and so I'm talking to Jim the other day. I go up into the foothills. There are dogs everywhere. Everybody had at least one dog with them, running on the trails, walking on the trails. This nice weather has got everybody out in the foothills.
That's right.
And that's got some dangers, too.
There is. I mean, we have rattlesnakes in the foothills, and so it happens every year. Dogs are going to get bit. So a couple things that you need to know. Number one, and the most important thing is pay attention to your dog. Watch where they're going. I see it all the time. I see people not paying attention to their dog in the foothills. The dog is running off the trail, jumping over logs and rocks, and then you hear the dog yip, and they don't even realize what it was because they weren't paying attention to their dog. And then if they don't realize what happened,
they might not know they got bit.
Might not know they got bit. Now, I've heard stories of some dogs surviving a rattlesnake bites, but every year I hear stories of dogs that don't. So it's number one, pay attention to your dog. Number two, if you're watching a behavior change in your dog, and people will see it when their dog scares up a fox or a deer, the dog's behavior is going to change. They're going to give you an alert. So if you're paying attention to them, you can quickly call them away, assuming your dog has good obedience skills.
My dog's pretty easy because it gets a ridge of hair all the way down the middle of her back whenever she kind of gets growling at someone. But there's so much of how do you keep a dog from sniffing around? You call it the smell mail.
Yeah,
and then you get out in the foothills, and there's all of these different things. How do you keep them on the trail?
Well, number one, you can use your leash as containment, and there's a lot of off-leash areas in the trail that I take my dogs to. But the biggest one is teaching your dog what the command come means. A lot of people just assume their dog knows how to come because they might come at the house. Well, your dog might be trained perfectly in the front yard or the backyard, but that's not the real world. The real world is when you get up in those foothills and they smell every animal that was just there, the fox and the deer and the ground squirrels and all these things, and then they start to investigate. Then their nose takes over, and then they lose track of where you are, and that's when danger can happen. So you have to pay attention to your dog. If you need to keep them on the trail, keep them on the trail with a leash, or go through training where the dog is responsive to your training. But I can't say it enough. Pay attention to what your dog is telling you. You pay attention if they're climbing over rocks, boulders, logs, getting in areas that are heavily wooded, not just rattlesnakes, but ticks. We're going to talk about that next week. So if you're paying attention to your dog, you're less likely to have an accident. But should your dog get bit, there are two 24-hour emergency clinics here in Boise. There's West Vet down in Garden Valley, or Garden City rather.
There's the number actually on your screen for West Vet.
And All Valley Animal Care Center in Meridian. You need to get your dog there right away should you suspect that they get bit by a rattlesnake. Now there are some precautionary measures you can take. There is a rattlesnake vaccine. Talk to your veterinarian about the rattlesnake vaccine. And then there is I shouldn't say classes, there are some seminars coming up on snake avoidance that are usually put on by a local hunting dog organization. We'll get information on that. We'll talk about that in the future. I think that's coming up in about another month or so. So there's some things that you can do to help prevent this. But the key is paying attention to your dog.
Keeping them on the trails. The first thing you should do, you probably won't see the dog get bit. Chances are it's going to be around the nose area when they're sniffing at something. The first thing you should do, pick up and call. First thing you should do, check them. Yeah,
you can look and make sure you don't see any swelling. You're going to see the two little needle-sized punctures, and it's probably going to be to the face. I've seen the rattlesnake bites in pictures where they've gotten the dogs on the legs, where they've almost stepped on them. But typically it's going to be to the face and neck area of the dog. So you're going to look for punctures, and timing is critical. You've got to get them into the vet so they can start the measures to eliminate that venom from the dog's system.
They say with people it should be within a couple of hours. So with a dog it's probably even more so because they're a smaller breed.
A lot smaller animal. And sometimes you'll get a dry bite where the snake didn't envenomate the dog, but I always err on the side of caution. Should that happen, get them in there right away.
You're going to see a lot more rattlesnakes out on the trails and stuff as they're starting to warm themselves up here in the spring, so this is all very good information. Don't forget, you can find all of it on our website as well as Jim's. You can also email us your questions, news@kboi2.com, or you can get a hold of Jim at jimclausen@sitmeansit.com. There's also the telephone number on your screen, 888-7978. And as if it's not bad enough with the nasties with the rattlesnakes, next week we'll talk ticks.
Ticks.
Ugh.
Big thing.
So much fun to try and take a tick off of a dog.
And humans too.
Yeah, it's true. All right, thanks Jim, we appreciate it.